Pokémon. It was a new world of childlike adventure and wonder, a world brimming with new life, new experiences, and it is one that I have slowly over time let fall by the wayside. Not that Pokémon has stopped just because I'm not paying attention to it. Oh no, Pokémon is nothing less than a massive worldwide phenomenon that few can truly encapsulate, one that has been in the works continually since the original release of Pocket Monsters Red and Green back in Japan, 1996. It has spawned generations of games, films, albums, and books, but here at Glass Reflection, we like talking about one particular kind of medium, and that is what we are going to be focusing on today. The VHS tape! Or more specifically, what's on the VHS tape and everything like it. I'm calling this video Remembering Pokemon because, as I said, the Pokemon anime has not stopped airing just because at some point in my young life I stopped watching it. At the time of recording this video, Pokemon has been on the air for 22 seasons and has a current total of 1,058 episodes. That's a lot. Take that, One Piece. But today we really are only caring about the first 82-ish. Or 77 if we decide to exclude the episodes banned in North America due to guns, seizures, and inflatable breasts. While Pokemon was not my first anime, nor did I watch it at a time when I really knew what anime was, I cannot argue its importance to my childhood and its influence on me. But it has been a while since I actually sat down to properly try and enjoy and watch the series. So, how does this initial season of Pokemon hold up? Is it still worthwhile to watch, or is it only palatable with a heavy glass of nostalgia juice? Let's find out. The original baseline plot of the Pokemon anime is quite similar to the video games released only a year prior. A young 10-year-old boy, Satoshi, or as we know him, Ash Ketchum, prepares for his 10th birthday when he is finally old enough to head to the local Pokemon professor's laboratory and receive his first ever Pokemon, this small pocket monster that will accompany him through his journey across the country in a competition that defines his very existence. Where the anime differs, however, is quite apparent from the get-go. Not only does Ash arrive too late to receive one of the original 3 starters, Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle, but Professor Oak really only has one Pokemon left, a small electric rat Pokemon, Pikachu, a Pokemon that even Oak is reluctant to hand over due to its poor temperament. But Ash is nothing if not stubborn, and if he is going to base his entire self-worth on being able to capture and train these creatures, then bad temperament is nothing he should not be able to handle. Pikachu disagrees.
Pika.
It's also known as electric mouse. It's usually shy, but can sometimes have an electrifying personality.
I see what you mean.
Shocking, isn't it?
Throughout the show's first episode, Ash literally drags Pikachu through the countryside outside of his hometown and tries his best to deal with this Pokemon who would much rather be anywhere else. This was just episode 1, and while it didn't establish the status quo that would soon come to light over the next few episodes, it clearly lays out several facts that remain prevalent throughout the series' first season. To start, Ash is a horrible trainer. I'm not the first one to say this, but it bears repeating. Ash constantly measures his own worth by trying to become a Pokemon master, which in this world involves catching Pokemon, training them to challenge gym leaders for badges, and to attend the Pokemon League and compete to be the very best.
Like no one ever was.
And this is identical to the same journey that players take through the original games. There's only one problem. By Ash's own metrics, he fails constantly and very rarely succeeds. Out of the original 150 Pokemon that were released, try and guess how many our Pokemon Master Ash caught during his time in the Kanto region. 11. And that's even being generous and counting the Tauros that we in North America don't actually see him catch because it was in a banned episode. And that's just the start. Now let's take a look at the other metric upon which Pokemon Masters are usually judged. Number of gym badges. By the end of the series, it is true that Ash physically owns all of the 8 Kanto badges required for entry into the Pokemon League. But if you were a fervent watcher, you would recall that Ash didn't earn most of them. At least not really. So let's go through that real quick, shall we? First, Boulder Badge against Brock. Ash fails in his first attempt, and after hooking up Pikachu to a nearby watermill to charge his electricity, faces Brock again. Only this time, Pikachu still fails. But a stray electric bolt activates the building's sprinkler system, which showers Brock's rock Pokemon Onix with water, which, you know, it's weak to, and that also somehow makes him more susceptible to Pikachu's electricity. That's not actually how that works, but okay, fine. So then Brock gives him a badge bonus. He joins Ash on his journey into becoming one of Ash's closest friends. Badge number 2, Cascade Badge. Ash's rival Gary Oak has already swept through the city and wiped out the gym's Pokemon supply. But hey, it just so happens that the girl who has been following Ash around, Misty, is the sister of the gym leaders and challenges Ash to a battle in their stead. Now, Ash should be able to wipe the floor here. Electric Pikachu versus Misty's water Pokemon, no contest, right? Well, unfortunately for him, Pikachu doesn't want to fight a friend and refuses to participate, leaving Ash stuck only fighting with his other Pokemon, the ones that he has at his disposal, which isn't good enough. Then Team Rocket barges in and has their moment in the sunshine when they capture all of the Pokemon in the Cerulean City gym, but then fail spectacularly because they were fighting against the literal god of thunder that is Pikachu, and Ash gets his badge, not for defeating the gym leaders, as is tradition, but because Pikachu is OP as hell. In fact, this is a kind of a theme that you might start to notice. Ash is not succeeding because of his own personal ability as a trainer or a battler, but because he won the lottery in receiving a Pikachu who holds the power of Thor. Badge number 3, Pikachu versus Raichu. To further demonstrate how OP this little rat is, he defeats his own evolved form through sheer tactics, because Pikachu is a better battler than Ash himself. True story. Badge number 4, Saffron City and Sabrina. Ash fails twice overall, and after literally dying and befriending a Haunter, said Haunter makes the psychic demon of a gym leader laugh, which is apparently good enough for a badge. Who knew? Badge number 5, Ash insults the gym leader and has to cross-dress with the help of Team Rocket to get into the gym itself. He fails to actually defeat the gym leader, but lucky for him, Rocket sets the gym on fire. You know, the gym for grass Pokemon. So then Ash is able to save the gym leader's gloom, earning him a badge. Badge number 6. Now this time, I would like to be perfectly fair. This is one where I can't really fault Ash's skills. This is the first time that he legitimately defeats a gym leader in question and earns the Soul Badge. It's just odd that Koga, being the poison-type gym leader, doesn't actually use any poison moves, and there's much more emphasis placed on him being a ninja, but sure, this one Ash gets, fair enough. Badge 7. This one occurs around the time that Ash's Charmander has evolved into a Charizard and has begun his proper teenage rebellion phase. As such, Ash has zero control over Charizard because, again, he's not really that good at what he does. And Charizard eventually helps fight because while he's enjoying not listening to Ash at the moment, he also doesn't want to be one-upped by Blaine's Magmar. So technically, this is one where Ash wins in a legitimate battle, but only because Charizard just happened to decide to cooperate, not because Ash is in any way a good trainer. Badge number 8 was basically a throwaway. Instead of fighting Giovanni like in the games, or like Gary had to do, Ash faces off in a gym battle against Team Rocket. You know, the same trainers that Ash has been fighting since episode 2 and he has never lost to because Pikachu is a god. Now, I'm not actually going to continue past this, but the point is that by Ash's own metrics of success, he is a constant failure and does things against the grain in hopes that everything just works out. And it just so happens that it does, most of the time. He constantly fights opponents going against type advantage without actually training his Pokemon, instead relying on their own innate intuition and abilities to win fights on their own. However, I think that this is mostly just a problem with him and how he views himself and his self-worth. He constantly proceeds under the impression that battling and earning badges and their equivalents is the only thing worthwhile in his adventure, despite the fact that he has been shown to be very adept in other Pokemon-related professions. For example, his Pokemon absolutely adore him as a person, and he takes great care of them. To him, they are not just mere tools for which to win battles, but friends with which to face challenges. And that is a worthwhile trait to have for like a Pokemon breeder. Pokemon Master, he ain't. Like, one of the reasons why I never enjoyed watching Ash as a protagonist is because he just seems to be failing upwards through life. He keeps running into great Pokemon that are so enamored by just him that they want to follow him. Badges are mostly given to him without great challenge, and he is living a life that us watchers can only dream of. Like, seriously, they never explain how he can afford to continually feed himself or make money at all, really doing what he does, so it's quite literally a dream for most of us regular folk. But at least I can take solace in the fact that we regular folk, unlike Ash, can actually beat Brock and Misty without bullshit tactics, and instead just pummel them with sheer force and an adequately leveled Charmander. Like I did. Don't.
That's what I'm talking about!
In fact, what kept me watching Pokemon for as long as I did wasn't Ash at all, but rather because of Team Rocket. Team Rocket is the group of 3 failures who appear in basically every episode of Pokemon after the first, who constantly try to capture Pikachu because they are one of the few who recognize this electric god's power. Unfortunately, though, because they keep trying to face the literal god of thunder, they almost never succeed, and them blasting off again every episode is played mostly for laughs. But I would posit that Team Rocket often are shown to be better trainers than Ash himself. Now, I'm not going to say that they are necessarily good people. Their first introduction shows them raiding a Pokemon hospital to steal sick and defenseless Pokemon. Not something that good people would generally do. But as characters, they are the ones who grow the most over time. Their constant ideas and inventions get more and more grandiose, and honestly, while their success rate is near zero, if they weren't constantly up against the literal god of thunder that is Pikachu, they'd probably find much more success for the effort that they put out on a regular basis. Team Rocket is just the lovable losers that I have grown more attached to as I've grown older, because it's hard to relate to this kid that just has a lot of things handed to him when you can instead relate to these 3 schmucks who constantly fail but never let that get them down. Well, at least not for very long anyways. Hell, after almost 2 decades worth of episodes, they actually managed to succeed in defeating Ash fair and square in battle, no cheating, Pikachu included, and it is such a good moment to watch. Yes, they are the token villains, but their villainy is just cartoonish in nature. No one is really threatened by them, and they don't actually harm anyone, but they have the capacity to learn and grow, which is something I never felt Ash was able to properly do. Now this all comes back to determining how enjoyable the show as a whole now is, whether or not it has stood the test of time and can still be enjoyed by those who have never watched it before, to which I say, probably not. As a test, like, I watched several episodes beyond the initial 80 some odd to try and get a feel for how the series progressed and how enjoyable this Pokemon formula actually was, while somewhat removing my nostalgia goggles by watching episodes I had not seen previously. I watched some of the episodes from the era of the Orange Islands, only to discover that I was suddenly a lot less lenient towards many aspects of the series that I otherwise was able to brush off. The tone, the pacing, the puns. My God, the English dialogue is so full of puns that it would make a committee of the most cringe-worthy dads cringe.
Stop pussyfooting around!
Just biding my time. The moment of truth!
Now, in fairness, the closer you get to present day, the less jarring that all of this becomes. Many sections in the XY era, up until current seasons, appear to be a lot more enjoyable, considering. Though, I do have to admit, it does feel a little odd for me after the unfortunate voice actor swap that happened back in 2006, but I'm not gonna get into that. But classic Pokemon, as I grew up with it, is a bit more of a relic, something that doesn't necessarily stand up on its own unless it is steeped in nostalgia for you, as it is for me. I am a kid who grew up watching the series religiously, memorized the Poké Rap in the wrong order just because I was watching it at the end of every episode, and it wasn't necessarily in order back then. I went to go see the first 2 films because A, watching Pokemon in the theater was nuts as a concept back when I was a kid, and 2, Lugia is my favorite legendary. Fight me. It is a product of its time that I will rewatch, not necessarily because it is a good series, but because for me, it reminds me of better times. The kind of times when this naive little kid who played N64, drank juice out of a box, and collected Pokemon cards had not a care in the world. I do have a holographic Charizard, though, so I have that going for me. This little card made me king of the playground. Now, that's a lie. I was never a king of the playground. Downside to all of this is that if you truly love Pokemon and want to watch it, your options are changing over time. At the moment, the original series is available on Netflix, but we don't know for how long, and even then, it doesn't contain all of the original series, only going up to episode 52 by my count. Surprisingly, though, a bunch of Pokemon episodes are available on the official Pokemon website, but only up until about somewhere in Johto for the classic episodes and the more recent Sun and Moon episodes. Still huge swaths of Pokemon anime history left undisturbed. But if you just want the nostalgia, those will do you just fine. And lastly, a very special thank you to all of my patrons who not only support my work in general, but also allow me to do what I do. I love and appreciate you all. Specifically, though, as I am wont to do, I'd like to give particular shout-outs to patrons Matthew Robertson, Hector Montemayor, Siri Yamiko, Ryfen Bonaparte, Rune Jacobson, Joshua Garcia, and Calhoun Boy for being especially awesome. You guys are great. And until next time, ladies, gentlemen, and others, watch more anime and stay frosty.